But let's talk about the beaten finalist Dirk van Duijvenbode's latest bid for a first PDC stage title, whether on the European Tour or in a major, fell short. Another last leg decider to go with the one he had in the World Series Finals a couple years ago. He said in his words afterwards that he, quote, choked in the final. How do you see him regrouping from this latest setback?
Yeah, you know what you're going to get with Dirk van Duijvenbode in an interview. He's always going to give you his honest opinion. He's not going to shy away from telling you how he's feeling. And we saw that on Sunday night, as you said there, in his own words. I choked again. I should have easily won. And watching after the final, the presentation, it was hard not to feel a little bit of empathy towards Dirk. That search for that first stage title in the PDC, it goes on. 5 finals he's made now, the World Grand Prix, 2 in the World Series now, 2 on the Euro Tour this year, and 3 of those, including at the weekend, losing in last leg deciders. And they are defeats that are going to hurt. And I remember we spoke about Dirk just after the first of those Euro Tour finals against Gerwyn Price. That was back in March. And we said, how does he bounce back? And we said, it's easier said than done, but he's got to dust himself down, go again. And what did he do after that final? A few weeks later, he wins a floor title, his 3rd of the year, puts himself in that position again to win that first stage title of the weekend. Again, we spoke about Luke Humphries, the run that he put to get to that final. Same with Dirk, 100 average to beat Andrew Gilding, 6-2 in his first game, then puts that marker down on the Sunday afternoon, the 107 average to beat Dimitri van den Bergh, 6-0, and the final session of the weekend, getting the better of Michael Smith in a tight one, 6-4, Joe Cullen, 7-6 in that last leg decider. And the game against Joe as well, the last leg on throw, takes out that 78 finish in 2 darts, a 14 dart leg, a game that had its nervy moments, but at the end of it, he was able to produce that quality leg that got him over the line on throw. And it looked like he was going to do it in the final, 7-5 up. Luke Humphries, 12 dart on throw. Okay, there's not much he could have done in that leg apart from throw a 9 dart, but the 14th leg misses the inside for the 112, comes back with 3 darts at 8-8, only uses one of them, the first dart going into that single 16, which, that's a tough dart to regroup from. But the decider, Luke Humphries, wires those darts at 10, gets that second chance, misses 2 darts at tops, and the 2 final legs of the final, Luke wins them 17 and 19 darts. So you're talking a low 80s average there that's got him over the line. So that's going to be hard to shake off for Dirk. But I think he's got to look at 2 things for me. And the first is other players for inspiration. In particular, the Euro Tour. You've got Rob Cross, who's just won his first Euro Tour title with the 8th attempt, the 8th final, lost the first 7, got over the line eventually. And on a bigger scale, you look at the likes of Michael Smith, lost 8 major finals, then won the Grand Slam. He's now world champion, world number 1. Peter Wright lost his first 5 finals in majors, and against Michael van Gerwen on TV, the record in finals, 0 for 10, then wins that world championship and went on to win so many other majors as well. So history is there. He can do it. Other players have done it. And I think the other thing really is just himself. And he touched on it in that post-final interview. He said, you miss so many match darts just because your head is such a storm. I couldn't calm down, but it is what it is. So controlling himself in those moments when you're throwing for the title. We know that Dirk, he is an explosive player, but staying calm in those crucial moments, that's something that in terms of a stage title, he's not managed to master yet. He's won some big matches, some dramatic matches, but when it's come to the crunch, winning a title, something that he's not been able to do. So there are 2 things I think he needs to work on, is that staying calm in those crucial moments, and if he needs a bit of inspiration, look at what other players have done in the past.
Yeah, it's a lot of what I was going to say as well. You know, I think the biggest thing, though, it's the same thing that I remember us saying about Michael Smith. And that's, why I think you're right saying, like, look at those other players for inspiration, but not just Michael Smith, some other players over the last 6-7 years that we've been doing this. What we have said about those players is they have to just keep remembering, if they're good enough to get into the position to win a major, that means they're good enough to win a major. If you can get to the line, you're ready. The fact that you didn't cross it, the fact that you Whether it's like Dirk van Duijvenbode busting first start in hand at double 8 by hitting the single 16, whether it's Peter Wright missing those 3 darts to win the Premier League, the 6 darts to win the Premier League, like he did 7 years ago now. If you're good enough to get to that point, that means you're ready to cross the line and win a major, or in this case, to win a Euro Tour event. And the fact that you didn't can't stop you. It shouldn't stop you. It's only you that would let it stop you. You have to remember that you are that good. That's why you're there. The fact that you've blown multiple opportunities, at least in your mind, you've blown multiple opportunities, means you're good enough to create multiple opportunities. And it means you're good enough to create multiple more. And it's a tough mindset to have. And we've seen like how long it affected Peter Wright. Yes, he went after he missed those darts at double in the Premier League and went and won a Players' Championship event. But very soon thereafter, he did regress for some period of time. He had been maybe not as good as Michael van Gerwen up to that point over the course of the season, but he had been closer to him than he had ever been before, and he fell back after that. And eventually he did step up his game, and a couple years later won the World Championship. And then he won a World Match Play, and he won another World Championship. He won plenty of other majors, including as that first World Championship being over Michael van Gerwen. Dirk van Duijvenbode's time will come. It could very well come in Blackpool in a couple weeks' time. If it doesn't, it could very well come in one of the 3 remaining Euro Tour events or the other 5 majors at the back end of the year. He needs to remember that the fact that he got to that position, that he ended up throwing 4 darts at double to win the title, but he actually had 6, because if you bust first start at double 8, you actually had 2 darts that you never got to use. So he really had 6 darts to win this match. And if he's good enough to be in that position, he's good enough to actually do it. Getting to the line is the hardest part. Crossing it is, in the end, much easier. There's so much you have to do to get to that line. It's a myth that the hardest dart to hit in darts is the winning dart. No. Every dart that leads up to that combined is so much harder. Yes, okay, it might be the single individual hardest, but it takes so much time, practice, determination, luck, and skill just to get there in the first place. And that's what Dirk needs to tell himself, because if he tells himself that, he'll bounce back quicker. He knows that, and he will remember that. And it's just, how long does it take to remember that? Accepting that you choked is not a bad thing. It's actually really a good thing, because if in order to choke, you had to have been in position to begin with. And that means he's one of the best players in the world. And that's how I think he needs to regroup. He just needs to remind himself that he only was able to choke because he was good enough to get there in the first place. And once he reminds himself that, once he gets back there, once he realizes that he was able to get in that position, even in what wasn't his best tournament. His 3 averages on Sunday evening were 95, 93, and 91, and he still nearly won the title. That's how good he is, and that's why he will regroup and come back even stronger.